recognition that he understands what his sin does to God.
In the first two verses here, probably all of us could write that out. Have mercy on me is an appeal that we constantly making in our lives. People who believe in God, believe in the full character of God. The world paints the picture of just love, right, without accountability. Those who understand the truth completely understand the fact that God has a loving side and has a side of wrath as well. We don't want to cover that up. We want to understand that we're not right with God, that we need Him to have mercy. There's never any way that we can obtain that or merit it in ourselves, and so we have to have mercy of God.
Right. That's good. Another good point. Mercy of God is required. Anything else anybody sees in this? Something I saw in it that I thought for us is this is not only David's plea to God, a request, but it's also David's recognition. It's turning it back on him. If you say something, I think it makes you realize that not only the danger he's in, but that he's really remorseful. You don't want to withstand the anger of God, but you also want to teach yourself to not be in a position where you're going to need to withstand the anger of God, at least as much as possible. So I think a lot of times what David does is he talks about something that he knows is wrong so that he's reminding himself. That's just my thought. At least I know I do that for myself. I will, if I feel, engaged in the possibility of wanting to do a sin, wanting to go through that, then it's a reminder to me when I'm talking to God every morning to say, okay, you need to be prepared for whatever's coming because you know that this is important for you.
Looking at it from the standpoint of this is what I deserve. Don't chase me to your hot displeasure. I deserve this. Please don't do it.
Right.
I was thinking in the respect, in the opposite side of it. I know as a father, I have at times corrected my children anger. I don't think that God does it that way. He's upset and angry with sin and that sort of thing, but it's that, it's not embarrass me, or whatever. That's not the idea behind it. And so God doesn't operate in that respect like human beings do. But we have to see that we do deserve to get whatever we're getting because of the decisions we make in life.
Anything else anybody sees?
Roy used to, and when he would get upset and he'd correct somebody, he would always bite his tongue. To stop from going in that direction. God doesn't bite his tongue, but he refrains from, does not have the ability or would not correct us in that respect. Has the right nature as far as moving us towards what we need to be.
Yeah, I didn't think about these verses in that way, but I think it's important for us to recognize that us having mercy or forgiveness or all of those values that God does is part of our Christianity. And many times, even sometimes today, I find myself not wanting to show mercy or feeling like I'm being disrespected or whatever. When you're in a been a manager for a very long time now, and so, sometimes you're just like, just do it like my dad used to say, as I said so. instead of being worried about why they don't understand why they have to do something the way they have to do it. I'm just tired of dealing with your questions, So I find myself not being a great manager a lot of times in the past, so I'm trying to change that too. But in our Christian lives, the same thing. I was doing the same thing in my daily life and everything that I did. Just understand I'm right, and that's all you need to understand. And then you don't need an explanation of what's going on here. I'm just, and I don't have to explain myself to you either. Thinking you really a lot of times I have to remember you put yourself in God's place. You put yourself in the place of the only authority, especially when you're doing it in something that in your daily life where you should be a pleasant person, not only just because it's not good not to be, but you should be you're never going to teach anyone with your life, with your words. You're never going to teach anyone because nobody wants to listen to that. All right, let's go to the second verse. It says, "Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak, O Lord. Heal me, for my bones are vexed." Anybody seeing that?
So there again is identification, humbling themselves, humility. I may have all this, but I can't do this by myself. He has that weakness there that he has to identify. That's still a problem today with folks inside the church, outside the church. Jesus is, you have to identify that we got to humble ourselves constantly. We start getting big headed, we think we can do life on our own, or the things that we have in life, just because we're so awesome. And, it's not the case. I didn't find that right off the get-go. Bringing yourself down. So, if you're saying and praying, he's identifying his own life.
Right, Spirit. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Both of those points. If you're saying it, you're at least identifying it. I think in this case, David's probably not necessarily where I am, so he's further along. But he still has to identify it for himself. Even though he tries to not be weak, he tries not to. He still realizes, hey, I'm still weak. So it doesn't matter where you are in your Christianity. You're never there. You're never going to be capable of doing what God can do for you. What else does someone see?
The word that stands out to me is the word vexed. I'm reminded of another passage of Scripture that talks about it. It's talking about Lot and what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, and it said that it vexed his righteous soul. What bothers us, what causes us anguish, internal turmoil, right? Is it, the affairs of what's going on around us? The situation here, what vexed him was, and what vexed Lot was the ungodliness, rebellion against God, those things that were happening around him.
Right.
With David, I think it was what was going on, the turmoil that was in his life was what he had done.
Right.
What Bible Jesus says, be anxious for nothing. Is that anxiety or anxiousness the same thing as being vexed? I don't think it is. We should be concerned about how we are in our relationship with God, right or wrong. But anxiety, worry over it is not, the things that are going on around us is not the thing that we concern ourselves with.
Yeah, that's something I thought about, and including the start of the next verse. He says, "For my bones are vexed, and my soul is also sore vexed." So, to me, and maybe I'm taking it too far, you can always, determine for yourself what you think it says, but it felt like he was saying, not only is my physical body exhausted or sorry for what I've done, but my soul is, it's like everything about you is what I would say. Everything about you is upset. Like, how many times have I found myself so upset about my sin that I can't stop trying to work on it, And that's where we need to be. That's the direction, and this is what David's saying. He's so sorry for his sin. Not only sorry, but putting himself in a place to be truly repentant. That's kind of where my thoughts went. Is how do you become truly repentant? Is he actually physically exhausted and his soul? He's talking about spiritual, and both spiritually and physically. I'm just so upset with my sin. Anything else?
Last two words, how long you going to make them suffer, or how long you going to basically let me teach me about it? Like us,
Yeah.
when Christ, the Lord and Christ return, how long you that way? Are we ready? And I think, like you said, it's totally physically and spiritually vexed. How long that could.
Yeah, I think he's recognizing his humanity, his desire to do what God's will is compared to his continuing to sin. Even no matter how little it is, he's just exhausted with himself. It's like, I'm just tired of myself doing the wrong thing. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel the same way sometimes. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You know what to do. You just can't. I actually can hear, I've at times been able to hear myself, don't do this, don't yell at somebody, that's not going to be the right thing. And still, it almost doesn't matter at some point. It's just like, okay, I'm going to do it.
One of the things, like David, I was thinking along the lines of what you were talking about is how long. If you look at Job, how long it's not a sense of doubt of God. It's just, please help me get through it. I know I've got to endure it. I know this is the way it is. I know what it's causing. It's going to work out. Even in Job's case, it went all the way to the bottom. He had that desperate sense about him as well. On the opposite side of it, he said, though he take my life, I will not forsake him. How long is it going to be, Lord? But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so I think to your point, I thought about this a lot, and I think, for us, we could say it's maybe a desire to not be alive anymore. Maybe it's a desire to be in heaven, I would say, instead of not be alive anymore, but to actually be able to. I don't think that's what he was talking about here, but I think for us, we could actually be wishing that this was the end, especially if we feel like it's also, acknowledgement of him being exhausted again with himself. Like, I'm want to be in this position anymore. But even beyond that, I think it's some recognition of just what David's feeling about where he is, his position, and that because later David here is asking to stay alive a little bit longer. So I don't think he's asking to not be alive, not be around anymore. How long until you come back? I think it's just a recognition that he's exhausted from what's been going on in his life, who he is, and his desire to be closer to God. Anything else? Anybody see this?
In my mind is what is our breaking point? Was David teetering on the edge with the question, how long? You think about people who were taken in war or whatever, they say that everybody has a breaking point, which they're just going to throw it in and give up. Right. Is David at the point where he's at his breaking point, or is he just, even more so, what is our breaking point? Do we consider the fact that, they just can't take it anymore? We look at people that we know, that have been members of the church, people that have been close friends, people that have been, we thought, solid, faithful people, and they're no longer a part of anything that has to do with the church, because there was a breaking point in their life for some reason. We have to evaluate our own selves in that respect. David had to do. He said, don't bear down on me so hard at my displeasure for what I've done that, I can't take it anymore. And he's a victim of God for his mercy. Right? In that respect. We see ourselves as weak and sinful and understand that we fall far short, and we need, to be sure that we trust in God enough that we can appeal to him not to, lead us not into temptation or don't, whatever it may be.
Something else I recognize that I already brought up in a previous chapter is David says, Lord, 8 times here. Did God forget who he was talking to? I mean, God knows he's talking to him. But again, I think it's this recognition of God and who he is, and not just you start by saying, Heavenly Father, or you start by saying God, but it's this continued recognition. I'm talking to this, something that I don't even fully understand, someone I don't fully have the capacity to know everything about. So it feels to me like when someone says this over and over again, that they're recognizing for themselves and for God the power that he has, the true majesty of God. How do you recognize that in your prayer? You can say his name. You can recognize who you're talking to. You can, especially in saying Lord or any of his name, it's just a recognition of the position that is held. Anything else? All right, what about verse 4? It says, Return, O Lord, deliver my soul. O save me for thy mercy's sake. What does anybody see in that?
We don't know exactly when this, at least I don't know exactly when this particular psalm was written. But obviously, it's at a point where he understood that whatever he had done had put him in a position where God wasn't with him. He didn't have that relationship that he needed. Yeah. And so the appeal there is to have God come back.
Yeah. my soul. I think this is again David's recognition that his whole being. I don't think I feel like I recognize my whole being most of the time. I just recognize the physical part of who I am. I don't a lot of times recognize that, oh, I'm spiritual and physical. It's your whole being, something that, a lot of times what I see, at least when I'm in the Psalms, which I'm in a lot because I think they help me, especially David in his, I want to understand David because I think that helps us understand God. So I'm in there a lot. And David recognizes that he's a complete being. And I think if you don't recognize that, then you start to think kind of like what you were talking about. You can do it on your own. If I'm just a physical being, I have to do it on my own. If I'm not spiritual too, then it doesn't matter. But I think people don't recognize that spiritual part of themselves, and they short themselves on what they're capable of. Because if you're not using your entire being, then you're not capable even of making your life peace. You can't get to a point where you're having peace. So a lot of worldly people think, how do I get there? What do? I do this. No, that didn't work. Do this. That didn't work. Do this. That didn't work. I think you can get to a point where you think you can do it on your own. You just got to figure out a way. If you can just get there, then you'll be okay. And I don't think we recognize that.
Shortly before I retired, I was sitting through some briefings that are happening. They're talking about staging for deployments, getting people ready to get the military. And they're in there and they're talking about getting brief. They're like the medical side, physical side, and they're talking about the spiritual side. And so they go through there. And I asked a question. I was like, what about the chapter? Or something like that. They're like, well, that's not what we're going to cover on the spiritual side. The spiritual side, how the soldier there feels, if they have things back home there, that kind of ease their spirits. That's what that's what it's about. It's like
you're ready to die here.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you get your wheel ready, your family, those things that are going on. It's like, well, that ease their spirits. That's the spiritual side. That's the soul, physical side. Right. And you ask them like, well, if they feel that way, that's something we have. Okay, yeah, first. Yeah.
That's kind of when I was listening to a guy the other day, and he was talking about this interview that I would say this guy's really crazy, the one he was listening to the interview on, but he was talking about the Bible. And he knew more about the Bible than I did. Like, he knew wine, he knew the Hebrew, but he was switching it, from something that was spiritual. And he took it and he said, well, so what I do is I get on psychedelics, and then I'm able to see what the Bible's really saying, which was not what the Bible was really saying. But he knew so much more than I did, and it was shocking to me. Like, wait, this guy studied. He has really worked hard to understand. And then he thinks he has to do something to modify that, because there is no way that it can be saying what it really says.
And the Bible talks about that too. People never learning and never coming to an understanding. Like people that know to go back to the Lord and just know the book that don't have it.
Right.
It's a hard. They don't have the heart to learn it because it's pride.
Yeah. But it's eye-opening to me that people are out there who have no intention of learning, studying more than I am. So something that I just recognize for myself. You've got to get serious about studying all the time. How do you catch up with these people who know so much that you don't know? And, to be able to even understand what the Bible is saying. He was talking about First John and about how amazing it would be. He was talking about it as if it didn't happen. Of Jesus, like if somebody really did come to earth and was so forgiving and so merciful that when they're on the cross, they could say, "Hey, that this is my car." I don't know how it locks itself, but sorry. Do I? I tried to put it unlocked for some reason. But anyway, I just thought how interesting. Exactly. That's right. I don't ever lock it. So anyway, it's for me it was something that I could see that people were spending the time to study and not ever know what the Bible says. And so my point was he knew that Jesus said he was asking for forgiveness for everybody. And he was like, well, that obviously didn't happen. But just think if it did. It would be so amazing. I just thought, how can you be so close and not realize that it really was that amazing? It was really that. So, anyway, that was kind of off topic, but it's just shocking to me that you can see the truth and just ignore the truth. It doesn't make any difference. There's something else I saw here. Does anybody have anything else? We've kind of talked about it a little, but why does God save us? This says, "Oh, save me for thy mercy's sake." So think about what mercy's about. Mercy's not about the fact that, oh, I made these creatures and so now I need to figure out a way to save them. But mercy's about God's intention of being merciful all the time. It's about that is his being. That's part of who he is. He's merciful. He is mercy. So if he's mercy, David's recognizing here, you're not saving me because of me. Not only are you not saving me because I've sinned, but you're not saving me because of me. You're saving me because of you, who you are, who your being, and what you stand for. That's why you're saving. So I thought that was interesting the way he said, "Save me for your mercy, for what you see as valuable." So let's look at verse 5. "For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In the grave, who shall give thee thanks?" What do you think he's even saying here? For in death there is no remembrance of thee. He just said, "Save me for thy mercy's sake." And now he's saying, "For in death there is no remembrance of thee, and in the grave, who shall give thee thanks?"
Well, I think that in this particular passage right here, he's saying that there is a line, and that line is death. You have opportunities before you die. God can take care of all the situations before you die, and when you die, there's no second chance, there's no purgatory, there's nothing else. It's not that there's no honor or worship of God. That's what like hereafter is all about. So he's saying, I understand this, Lord, but it's got to be handled taken care of on this side of the bed.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. And he's also saying, you'll see further down, where he's talking about, hey, let me help one more person. Let me. So he's actually here asking God to not let him die now, which almost seems in opposition to what it feels like before. He's like, come on, just come on, and let's go ahead and be done with it. And now he's saying, but let me stay. Let me not die. If I die, I can't help one more person. I can't serve you anymore in the way that would bring someone to you. So, what can we gain from this, you think?
I think we can spend all our time thinking about our situation and be consumed with whether, sin or righteousness, either one. He was consumed with problems in his life, but he did have what made his life was the fact that there was people around him, his family, those that, he cared about, that he wanted to have an effect on, and that really is the summation of Christianity, or what makes Christianity fulfilling, in the sense that you can lose yourself and your problems and your situations, focus on something that is beneficial, gives honor to God, and gives salvation to you, and helps other people. And so sometimes we lose sight of that aspect of Christianity because we become so concerned with ourselves. So David, left himself there for a minute and said, let's help me focus on getting opportunity to do what you put me here for.
Yeah. And I think in terms of me, when I look at this, I'm not going to start thinking about other people when I'm worried about myself as easily as it looked like David could go between. He's like, I'm at the lowest point, felt like he's saying here. And then he switched over and said, but I still need to serve you. I still want to serve you. Don't take me now. Don't, whatever he's asking for, he's still saying, I need to serve. I need to be able to bring someone to you. And so I think that's important for us to know. We'll go ahead and end here with David's prayer in 1 Chronicles. In 1 Chronicles 29, he's at the end of his life, and he's talking to congregation of people at this time. And he says, I'm going to offer praise to God. And I think this can help us with our prayers. I'm just going to read a portion of it, but the portion that really hit me when I was listening to it. And it starts in 1 Chronicles 29, verse 10. It says, wherefore David blessed the Lord before all the congregation. And David said, blessed be thou, Lord God of Israel, our Father, forever and ever. Thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heaven and in the earth is thine. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all. In thine hand is power and might, and in thine hand is to make great and to give strength unto all. Now therefore, our God, we thank thee and praise thy glorious name. That just hit me as something that I don't see a lot of, and I try to do in my daily prayer. So something you may be able to look at and just recognize something of value in there. He spent the first 3 or 4 verses not asking for anything, but just praising God for who he was.
Where's that at?
1 Chronicles 29, 10 through, I think I went through 15. Thank you for your attention, and I really appreciate all your comments today. Again, we didn't get very far, which I'm grateful about. I really think this is great that we can spend so much time on each verse and really dig into what is good for us to pray about.
I told you to take the first day of school. Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, no. But you know, good. I told her I'd take her to eat first day of school. She had to go there. I said, who are you working for? Oh, you working for? She said, you want first day of school? Oh, let's go. Yeah. I'm looking on. I didn't know you worked tomorrow. Oh, yeah, I work at Airport. You want to go out there? Well, that's what I'm doing this week. He's where you're thinking. It's just, body combined check. So, how do you compare to the bill school? Which one? Not bad. Oh, good one. It's that bad. I didn't think I thought it wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't. It's just very, it's because they take the grandkids, they just and now they just stick to them. We just everything's just it's not that much that you no, because you stole it.